Dan Illman, Mike Beer, closing out the Aqueduct Winter-Spring meeting and the Saturday card with race number 9, the $200,000 Times Square division of the New York Stallion Stakes. 5:48 Eastern is the approximate post time, and you're going to want to play this card with a DRF Bets account. 3 stakes races on tap on Saturday. Deposit 100, bet with 250 with DRF Bets. Learn more at bets.drf.com. Let's meet the field of 3-year-olds getting set to go. 6.5 furlongs for a big pot. $200,000 is the purse. The 8 is Blind Willie McTell, 2-1 on the morning line, going out for Linda Rice. This horse popped an 85 Beyer speed figure over a wet track as a 2-year-old. There's a good chance he's going to get a wet track once again on Saturday. Now, he won the Rego Park last time out. He stumbled coming out of the gate, cut himself. Our colleague Dave Grenning in his race advance noted that this horse had a cut, it was infected, and that's why he's been laid off.
Yeah, that's the reason for the layoff. So we'll see if he comes back running. It's been 97 days since that race. Linda does have good numbers off of layoffs like this, so you would just hope that she has this horse ready to go because, Dan, if he comes back and he runs his best race, and I know that there are a couple other good horses in here, this horse is going to be very hard to beat. He's run really well in all of his starts. You mentioned the 85 Beyer over that wet track where he just dominated those maidens. He ran even better in the Rego Park last time. Under constant pressure on the lead in that race, he shed all of that pressure and kept going through the stretch and then held on over a perfect trip closing runner-up in that race. He ran a huge race last time. We'll see if the layoff, the little injury, if all that stuff works against him. Maybe he'll have a tough time winning right back, but based on what he's done so far, this is one of the better New York bred sprinters around right now, the 3-year-olds.
And one of the also-rans from that race came back to win with an 88 Beyer speed figure against optional claiming competition. Now, Blind Willie McTell likes to be up front. He handled the pace pressure successfully at this distance last time out. Timeform US believes there will be a similarly fast situation, and Blind Willie McTell will be involved along with the 1 and the 2. This is where post position becomes a great advantage for Blind Willie McTell because Herad Ortiz has options.
Yeah, he does have options outside the other speeds in this race. And listen, he was taking pressure on the lead the entire way last time, but he was inside in that spot. Being outside, I don't think it's clear right now that this horse has to be on the lead and involved in a pace to run his best race. He may very well be able to track it.
And I think he will sit that 3-wide tracking trip, ready to make the move on the turn, and then says to the closers, come get me. Let's talk about Kosciuszko, the 1, Hushin, the 2. Both of those horses expected to be part of the pace. They tried to stretch Kosciuszko out 2 starts back, and he succeeded at a mile. Last time out, he just faced a pretty good horse, I think. I think Durkin's Call is really improving at the right time. Now, cutting back to 6.5 and drawing the rail, it just kind of forces Jose Lezcano's hand.
Yeah, it really does. I do like the cutback for him, and that field that he faced last time was very good, as you say. At least the horse that beat him was. So maybe in some ways it's class relief, but he's got such a bad post with speed to his outside. We'll see. I just think he's going to have to run a lot better than he's run so far to beat this field.
Hushin wouldn't mind a wet track. He has run well in all 3 of his wet track starts, but last time out when he beat Funny Guy, who we'll get to in a little bit, he just kind of set a nice rated pace on the lead. I wouldn't say it was fast. I wouldn't say it was slow. I would say it was moderate to fair, and he was able to sprint on home. This time around, he's either going to have to duel or he's going to have to sit, and sitting isn't something that he's shown a willingness to do through 6 starts.
I agree with that. I don't want to knock this horse because he's been in good form, and Bruce Brown, he's very quietly had a really strong winner in New York. But this horse, he got such a soft trip on the lead last time, and then, on top of that, there was just all this crowding at the start. A bunch of horses were badly compromised behind him. So in a lot of ways, despite matching his career top figure, he really took advantage last time.
Funny Guy tried to run with Blind Willie McTell in the Rego Park, and it certainly didn't work out very well for Funny Guy. Kind of shows how well Blind Willie McTell ran in that race. The fact that Funny Guy was beaten almost 20 lengths after battling with Blind Willie McTell. Connections learned their lesson. John Terrido is very, very shrewd. They rated this horse last time out. He came with an okay run behind Hushin. And if you give him a fast pace, maybe he'll come with a better performance. You always have to respect respect this barn at a price.
Yeah, and I do think they'll probably try him from off the pace this time and see if he can take a little bit of a step forward. He was one of the horses behind Hushin last time. He was just really bothered at the start of that race. Got in very tight. He lost position to the back of the field, and then he got forward and he just couldn't make any real impression on Hushin, but he did have a little bit of an excuse last time.
Thorny Tail tried to make up ground on Blind Willie McTell in his last 2 races in vain. Now he's going to come into this race off of a 3-month layoff. Again, the pace should help him. He draws an outside post position. He may not be getting that slop kicked back in his face, and his best buyer figure came over a wet track.
Yeah, I like this horse, Dan. I think he's run well in all of his races. So far, Blind Willie McTell has just been too much for him. So he does have ground to make up on that horse, and obviously there are a couple of other good horses in here as well. But I like this horse. I think he has it in him to take a step forward. He wants to race from off the pace. Unfortunately for him, he's drawn way outside again. He keeps getting wide trips in his races. He'll probably get another one here. This race sets up pretty well for him. I'm using this horse.
Back to reality from a class and distance perspective for the number 4 Bankit, the 5-2 second choice on the line. I would not be surprised if he ends up the favorite in this race. Sort of odd that as a 2-year-old, he was real precocious. He was real fast in all those sprint races. And usually when those sort of horses stretch out in distance, they strut their speed.
Yeah.
Instead, when this horse stretched out in distance, he miraculously became a 1-run closer, and I think he was on the Derby trail for a little bit too long. Last time out in the Louisiana Derby, A, those horses are way better than he is.
Yeah.
B, the 1 1/8 is too far. And C, they were just kind of riding for a piece, I thought. Irad took him back to last. He just swung him wide into the stretch. He said, let's try to make up some ground. He passed a couple of tired horses. I think sprinting is what he wants. I think New York Breds is what he wants. Can he come from last against this field?
I agree with all the stuff you said. I don't know if he can come from last and beat this field, but the pace is supposed to be there for him. And, you know, I know that his, looks like his new running style is just to drop out of it and try to make one run. I wouldn't be surprised if they ride him a little bit differently in this race. I like him cutting back in distance. I liked his races as a 2-year-old in New York. He's obviously a major player in this race, Dan. I'm not way against him, but I have a thing for Blind Willie McTell, and I think I'm going to go in that direction.
Before we get to our top picks, we'll look at some of the long shots in post-position order, beginning with the 3, Seed Money. Real shrewd claim by Leah Jarmati, who put blinkers on off the claim, and immediately this horse showed much improved early speed. And the runner-up came back to run a fine race, finishing second in a state-bred maiden special weight with a 78 buyer speed figure. This is a big step up in class. Might be too much too soon, but perhaps promising enough down the road.
I can see all that stuff. I mean, I know the race 2 back in maiden 30s didn't come back fast, but took him back that time. They had a contested pace in front of him, and he came running at the end. And last time, when Leah took him over, just put him right on the front, and he was able to hold on. He showed 2 back that he can run into a pace, and he should have a pace here.
The Big Lebanese was necked by Funny Guy in the Big Lebanese's career debut. He came off of a short layoff last time out with an even performance behind Stonebreaker. I thought as a prep for this it was okay, but he might have to do better in order to take down sort of the big names in this race. I think he might be an exotics threat at a price.
Yeah, I agree. This might be a little bit too tough for him, but he deserves a chance in a race like this. He's actually run well in all of his races so far. That Stonebreaker who beat him last time, you'll see him in the Mike Lee, I think. He's a really good 3-year-old New York bred sprinter.
I like the cutback in distance for the 7, Bay Banker, who took on Just Right, who just ran off the screen with a 88 buyer speed figure, winning on April the 11th. He comes back on short notice, does Bay Banker, and he should get the right pace setup. Listen, his buyers are creeping to the point of contention.
Yeah, he's been in good form. His last 2 races, the fastest he's run. He should have some pace to close into as he turns back in distance. He's a long shot you could use underneath.
I wonder if Captain Frost, the 10, is the Linda Rice long shot you might want to consider, because he ran a big race against maiden claimers over a wet track. He won by almost 10 lengths. He then came right back to wire a field going a mile. I think the turnback is good for him. I think he can sit from off of the fast pace. Yes, he has to run a lot faster, but he's been good in blinkers for a great trainer. He's 20-1 on the line.
Yeah, the question is, how good is he and can he really improve? I mean, out of his debut, it seemed pretty clear that he was a horse you wanted in his second start. I was a little surprised Linda dropped him in for 50, but he looked like a totally different horse in that race. You could tell he was going to win 2 jumps out of the gate, and he won very easily. Last time, I mean, he just walked on the slowest of paces. Obviously, he can't get that trip in here. We'll see if he can run from off it.
Third place horse from that race came back to beat $32,000 New York bred Claimers with a 66 buyer. Ventus, I thought, came from off of a moderate pace to win last time out over a wet track. I just didn't love the field he beat.
Yeah, I didn't like that race that much, and obviously with a 59 buyer, he's got a lot of improving to do.
Top pick time for the last race of the Aqueduct meet. We head to beautiful Belmont Park next week. You're going with Blind Willie McTell. You're just a big fan. He draws a great outside post position. He's got to get the jump on Bankit, right?
Yeah, I think so. We'll see what happens. Listen, I'm not way against Bankit, but I really like Blind Willie McTell. Like all of his races so far. You know, the 11 was the other horse from me, Thorny Tail. I thought long and hard about putting him on top. And maybe I should have. It'll be a good price in here, but I really like the 8 and the 11, maybe to try and beat Bankit.
Meg's going with the 8 and the 11. Is going to use Bankit in single race exotics, perhaps underneath. I like Bankit turning back in distance. This is what he wants to do. We'll see if he can continue improving or if he was just a precocious 2-year-old and the rest have caught up with him. 4, 8, 2, and 5 for me in the Times Square division of the New York Stallion Stakes, the last race of the Aqueduct meet and of the day on Saturday. Bet them all at Aqueduct on Saturday with a DRF Bets account. Deposit 100, bet with 250. DRF Bets, ready, set, bet. Approximate post time for the Times Square division, 5:48 Eastern. Best of luck.